May I stay here? Someone is following me. The millionaire almost didn't believe her, until a shadow appeared behind the glass. The lobby of the building was bright and quiet in the way places become at the end of a long workday. Glass walls reflected the city outside, where evening traffic moved slowly and the sky was already turning dark. The polished floor echoed softly with footsteps, and the air smelled faintly of coffee and cold air brought in each time the doors slid open. Adam Reynolds stood near the reception desk, scrolling through his phone, his jacket still on his shoulders. He had stayed later than planned, as usual, finishing a call that could not wait until morning. His reflection in the glass looked tired but composed, a man who was used to control, schedules, and predictable outcomes. Outside, the city continued its rhythm, unaware of him or his thoughts. May I stay here? The voice was so quiet that at first he thought he had imagined it. Adam looked up, irritation ready on his face, then stopped. A little girl stood a few steps away from him, close enough that he wondered how long she had been there. She was about 6 years old, blonde hair pulled back messily, blue eyes too serious for her age. She wore a simple blue school dress, slightly wrinkled, and a red backpack hung from her shoulders, heavy enough to pull her backward. Her hands were clenched around the straps as if letting go might cause something bad to happen. Before Adam could respond, she spoke again, even more softly. Someone is following me. The words landed oddly, without drama or panic, as if she were stating a fact she had already accepted. Adam straightened, his attention fully on her now. He glanced around the lobby, instinctively checking for an adult, a teacher, a parent rushing in with worry on their face. No one came. Who is following you? He asked, keeping his voice calm. The girl shook her head slightly. I don't know, she said. But he's been behind me since I left school. Adam frowned. The lobby was full of cameras, security guards were stationed nearby, and the entrance was monitored at all times. Everything about the place suggested safety. He told himself that children often misunderstood shadows, that fear could invent stories when a day had been long. You're safe here, he said carefully. Maybe you just felt scared. She didn't answer right away. Instead, her gaze drifted toward the glass wall that faced the street. Her grip on the backpack straps tightened, and her shoulders lifted slightly, as if she were bracing herself. Adam followed her gaze. Outside, among the reflections of passing cars and streetlights, something shifted. A darker shape moved closer to the glass, just enough to stand out from the rest. A man's silhouette, still and watching, his face obscured by shadow and glare. Adam's breath caught. In that moment, the lobby no longer felt bright or controlled. It felt exposed. The girl stepped closer to him without thinking, and for the first time since she had spoken, fear finally showed on her face. That's him, she whispered. Adam didn't look away from the glass. He reached for the security button beneath the desk, his hand steady despite the sudden rush of adrenaline. He realized then how close he had come to dismissing her, how easily he might have told her to go home, how different everything could have been if he had chosen not to listen. The doors remained closed, the glass holding firm between inside and outside, but Adam knew this moment had already crossed a line. Whatever happened next, neither of them would forget the instant when a quiet voice asked for help, and was finally believed. The seconds that followed felt stretched and unreal, as if the air itself had grown heavier. Adam kept his eyes on the glass wall, watching the dark shape outside shift slightly before stepping back into the blur of passing lights. The man did not try the door. He simply stood there long enough to be seen, then disappeared from view, leaving behind a sense of unease that lingered like a bad afterimage. Adam exhaled slowly and turned his attention back to the girl. She was standing so close to him now that her shoulder brushed his arm, her eyes wide and fixed on the spot where the silhouette had been. Her breathing was shallow, careful, as though she were afraid even that might give her away. "It's all right," Adam said, lowering his voice. "You're inside. He can't get to you." She nodded but did not relax. "He waits," she said quietly. "He always does." The certainty in her words made Adam pause. "How many times have you seen him?" he asked. She hesitated, counting silently on her fingers. "3, she answered. "Maybe 4. He stands near the school gate. Sometimes near the store. Today he followed me." Adam felt a tightening in his chest. He glanced toward the security desk and caught the attention of one of the guards, signaling subtly for him to come closer. Then he turned back to the girl. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lucy," she replied. "I'm Adam," he said. "Lucy, do you come through here often?" She shook her head. "No. But the door was open, and I didn't know where else to go." The answer carried more weight than it should have. Adam imagined her standing on the sidewalk, deciding in a few frightened seconds where safety might be, choosing this building because it looked bright and solid and guarded. He wondered how many other places she had passed that had not felt safe enough to enter. "Where is your mother?" he asked. "At work," Lucy said. "She finishes late. I always walk home alone." The guard arrived then, a tall man with a calm presence. Adam explained the situation briefly, keeping his voice neutral, while Lucy listened closely. The guard nodded and moved toward the entrance, scanning the street outside. "Did he say anything to you?" Adam asked Lucy. She shook her head. "No. He just looks. When I stop, he stops. When I walk faster, he walks faster too." Adam's jaw tightened. He was used to solving problems with data and logic, but this kind of danger did not announce itself clearly. It hid in patterns and instincts, in the quiet knowledge of a child who had learned to pay attention. "We're going to call the police," Adam said. "And we'll call your mom." Lucy's face paled slightly at the mention of her mother. "I don't want her to be mad," she said. "She won't be," Adam replied, though he did not know if that was true. "You did the right thing." Lucy looked at him for a long moment, searching his face with the same careful focus she had used on the street. Slowly, she nodded, as if accepting that for now, she did not have to decide anything else on her own. Outside, the street looked normal again, cars passing, people walking, nothing to suggest what had just happened. Inside, Adam felt acutely aware of how thin the line between safety and danger could be, and how close he had come to ignoring a quiet request that had carried far more weight than he had realized. The police arrived faster than Adam expected, their presence cutting cleanly through the uneasy stillness that had settled over the lobby. 2 officers stepped inside, shaking off the cold, their expressions alert but controlled. The guard spoke with them quietly near the entrance, gesturing toward the glass wall and then toward Lucy, who stood rigid beside Adam, her fingers still locked around the straps of her red backpack. Adam crouched slightly so he was closer to her eye level. "They're here to help," he said gently. "You don't have to be afraid." Lucy nodded, but her eyes never stopped moving, tracking every reflection in the glass, every shadow that passed outside. It was clear that this was not the first time she had waited for danger to return. One of the officers approached them and knelt as well, softening his posture. He spoke to Lucy calmly, asking her to tell him what she had seen, where she had been walking, how long the man had followed her. Lucy answered carefully, choosing her words with the precision of someone who knew she needed to be believed. She described the man's coat, the way he stayed just far enough away not to be noticed by others, how he never spoke but never disappeared either. As she talked, Adam felt a growing heaviness in his chest. This was not imagination. This was a pattern. The officer nodded slowly, then stood and stepped aside to speak with his partner. Adam caught fragments of their conversation, reports, previous calls, a description that sounded familiar. His unease deepened when he realized this was not an isolated incident. A few minutes later, the glass doors slid open again, and a woman hurried inside, her face pale and frantic. Lucy turned at the sound of her footsteps, and something in her posture finally broke. "Mom," she whispered. The woman rushed forward and dropped to her knees, pulling Lucy into her arms with shaking hands. "I'm so sorry," she said over and over, her voice cracking. "I was late. I should have been there." Lucy clung to her, but her eyes flicked briefly toward Adam, as if checking whether he was still there. He stayed where he was, giving them space but not stepping away. The police explained what had happened, their voices calm but serious. Lucy's mother listened in silence, her hand pressed protectively against her daughter's back. When they mentioned similar reports near the school, her face drained of color. "I thought she was just scared," she said quietly. "She told me about a man once, but I didn't see anyone. I didn't want to frighten her." Adam felt a sharp pang at that. He understood the instinct to dismiss fear when life was already heavy, when there were bills to pay and shifts to work and no room left for imagining worst-case scenarios. Still, the cost of disbelief stood trembling in front of them. The officers assured her they would increase patrols near the school and begin actively searching for the man Lucy had described. They took statements, wrote notes, asked careful follow-up questions. Time passed almost unnoticed until the lobby lights dimmed slightly, signaling how late it had become. When the officers finally left, the building felt too quiet. Lucy's mother thanked Adam repeatedly, her gratitude raw and unfiltered. "If she hadn't come in here," she said, unable to finish the sentence. Lucy stepped away from her mother and walked back to Adam. She hesitated, then spoke. "You stayed," she said simply. Adam met her gaze. "You were brave enough to ask," he replied. "That's what mattered." She considered that for a moment, then nodded, as if storing the idea somewhere safe. As Lucy and her mother walked toward the exit together, Adam watched them go, the glass doors closing softly behind them. The lobby returned to normal. Phones rang. Footsteps echoed. The city outside moved on. But Adam remained where he was, unsettled by how close the danger had come and how easily it might have been missed. He understood now that safety was not only about locks and cameras and systems. Sometimes it depended on a single decision, to stop, to listen, and to take a quiet voice seriously when it asked for help. That night did not end when the lobby doors closed behind Lucy and her mother. Adam left the building later than usual, but the city no longer felt familiar to him. The reflections in the glass, the movement of shadows between cars, the ordinary rhythm of people walking home all carried a new weight. For the first time in years, he found himself watching instead of moving forward, noticing details he had trained himself to ignore. Sleep did not come easily. When it finally did, it was shallow and restless, filled with fragmented images of a small figure standing alone behind glass, of a shadow that never quite disappeared. Adam woke before dawn with the strange certainty that the story was not finished, that what he had witnessed was only the visible edge of something much darker. The next morning, he called his assistant and cancelled his early meetings without explanation. Instead, he drove toward the school Lucy had mentioned, parking across the street and sitting in his car longer than necessary. Children arrived in clusters, laughing, pushing one another, backpacks bouncing against their shoulders. Parents kissed foreheads and waved before turning away. It all looked normal, almost painfully so. Adam stayed anyway. He told himself he was being cautious, that this was none of his responsibility, but he did not leave. He watched the sidewalks, the corners, the places where someone could stand unnoticed. For nearly an hour, nothing happened. Then, just as the last bell rang, he saw him. The man stood near a convenience store across the street, half hidden by an advertisement board. He did not look threatening at first glance. Average height, neutral clothing, nothing that would draw attention. Yet he wasn't buying anything, wasn't talking to anyone, wasn't checking his phone. He was watching the school gate. Adam's stomach tightened. The man shifted slightly when a group of children passed, then stilled again. His gaze lingered too long, followed movements too precisely. Adam reached for his phone, his pulse steady but cold, and called the number the police had given him the night before. "This is Adam Reynolds," he said quietly. "I think I see the man you're looking for." The police arrived within minutes, discreet but alert. Adam stayed in his car, watching as officers approached the man, spoke to him, and asked him to step aside. The man resisted at first, then complied, his calm slipping just enough to reveal irritation beneath it. When they led him away, Adam exhaled for what felt like the first time all morning. Later that afternoon, Adam received a call from an unfamiliar number. Lucy's mother. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "They questioned him," she said. "They found photos on his phone. Of children. Of Lucy." The word lodged in Adam's chest like something sharp and immovable. He closed his eyes, gripping the edge of his desk. "They said if she hadn't come into that building," the woman continued, her voice breaking, "they don't know what would have happened." Adam didn't know what to say. No response felt adequate. That evening, Lucy came to the building with her mother. She walked more confidently now, though her eyes still scanned the room out of habit. When she saw Adam, she stopped. "Mom said you stayed to watch," Lucy said. Adam nodded. "I just wanted to be sure." Lucy studied him for a long moment, then stepped closer. "He won't come back, will he?" "No," Adam said firmly. "He won't." She seemed to accept that, though fear did not vanish entirely. It softened instead, loosened its grip. Lucy reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded drawing, handing it to him with both hands. It showed a tall building with bright windows and a small figure inside, standing next to a much larger one. "That's where I was safe," she said. Adam took the drawing carefully, feeling something shift deep inside him. He had built companies, created systems, protected data worth millions. Yet this quiet moment, this fragile trust, felt heavier and more important than any of it. As Lucy and her mother left, Adam remained standing in the lobby long after the doors closed. He understood now that believing a child had not just changed one evening. It had stopped something terrible from happening. And that knowledge would stay with him, reshaping the way he moved through the world from that day forward. The days that followed unfolded with a strange mixture of relief and unease. The immediate danger was gone, yet its echo lingered in everything Adam did. He found himself replaying the moment Lucy had spoken, the calm way she had asked for help, and the thin line that had separated safety from something far worse. That line haunted him more than the shadow behind the glass ever had. News of the arrest did not reach the public. The police kept details quiet, careful not to cause panic near the school. Adam was briefed privately instead, invited to give a formal statement about what he had seen and when. Sitting in the interview room, he felt oddly exposed, stripped of the authority and confidence that usually came so easily to him. For once, his status meant nothing. He was simply a witness who had listened when it mattered. Lucy began seeing a child psychologist recommended by the police. Adam learned this through her mother, who kept him updated more often now, as if an invisible thread had been tied between their lives. She spoke honestly about the guilt she carried, about the signs she had dismissed because she was tired and overwhelmed and afraid of being wrong. Adam never judged her. He understood now how easy it was to ignore danger when acknowledging it felt unbearable. One afternoon, Lucy and her mother came to the building again. This time Lucy walked in with her head held a little higher, her red backpack still heavy on her shoulders but no longer clutched like a lifeline. She smiled when she saw Adam, a small, cautious smile that felt like something earned. "I don't have to walk alone anymore," she told him. "Mom changed her work hours." "That's good," Adam said, genuinely relieved. She nodded, then hesitated. "I still look at the windows sometimes," she admitted. "Just in case." Adam crouched slightly so they were closer in height. "That's okay," he said. "Being careful doesn't mean you're scared. It means you're paying attention." Lucy seemed to think about that. Then she reached into her backpack again and pulled out another drawing, placing it beside the first one she had given him days earlier. This one showed a girl standing in a bright lobby, a shadow outside the glass crossed out with a bold red line. "That's him," she said, pointing. "And that's where he can't go." Adam felt a quiet tightness in his chest. He realized that for Lucy, safety was no longer an abstract idea. It was a place, a memory, a moment where someone had stopped and stayed. After they left, Adam sat alone in the lobby longer than usual, watching people pass through the space. He noticed how often adults brushed past children without really seeing them, how easily a small voice could be lost in the noise of everyday life. The thought unsettled him deeply. That night, he made several calls. Not to investors or executives, but to people who ran local programs, school safety initiatives, and child advocacy groups. He asked questions. He listened. He learned how many warnings went unheard, how often children sensed danger long before adults did. For the first time in years, Adam felt a different kind of responsibility take shape inside him. It wasn't about control or success or reputation. It was about attention. About believing before proof appeared. About understanding that sometimes the most important decisions are made in seconds, in quiet spaces, when no one is watching. As he turned off the lights and left the building, Adam looked once more at the glass wall facing the street. It reflected only his own silhouette now, steady and clear. He understood that the night Lucy had stepped inside had changed more than just her path home. It had changed his. What Adam did not expect was how deeply the aftermath would reach into his everyday life. The danger had been removed, the man arrested, the immediate threat erased, yet Adam found himself unable to return to the version of himself that had existed before that quiet request in the lobby. The world felt sharper now, filled with details that demanded attention rather than efficiency. He began noticing children everywhere. In elevators, on sidewalks, sitting alone on benches while adults scrolled through their phones. He noticed how often their voices were dismissed, how frequently their instincts were corrected instead of questioned. It unsettled him in a way business failures never had. Those had always felt abstract, reversible. This felt personal and irreversible. Lucy's mother called him one evening, her voice hesitant but determined. She explained that Lucy was struggling to sleep again, not because of nightmares about the man, but because she kept replaying the moment she asked for help. She was afraid that next time, someone might not listen. Adam listened carefully, understanding immediately what was being asked of him without it being said directly. "Can I talk to her?" he asked. The next afternoon, Lucy sat across from him in a small conference room that had been cleared of screens and noise. She swung her legs slowly beneath the chair, watching him with the same careful focus she always used when deciding whether an adult was safe. You were brave, Adam said gently. Do you know that? She shrugged. I was scared. Being scared and being brave aren't opposites, he replied. Sometimes they happen at the same time. Lucy considered this, her brow furrowing slightly. If I didn't come in, would you still have found him? She asked. Adam didn't avoid the truth. No, he said honestly. You helped stop him. Her eyes widened, not with pride, but with something heavier. Then what if other kids don't know where to go? That question stayed with Adam long after the conversation ended. It followed him into meetings, into late-night drives home, into moments when he stared at his reflection in glass and thought about how easily he could have kept walking that night. Within weeks, he redirected resources without announcement. He funded safety programs near schools, installed monitored safe entry points in public buildings, and worked with local authorities to improve response protocols when children reported being followed. He insisted on one rule above all others: children were to be taken seriously immediately, without debate. Lucy noticed the changes, even if she didn't understand their scope. One day she asked him why there were new signs near her school that said "safe place" in bright letters. So kids know where to go, Adam said. She smiled then, small and genuine. Like your building. Yes, he replied. Exactly like that. The court proceedings moved quietly but steadily. Evidence accumulated. Testimonies were recorded. The man behind the glass was no longer a shadow but a documented threat, one that would not return to sidewalks or school gates. Lucy's fear softened into something manageable, something that no longer ruled her every step. One evening, as Adam walked Lucy and her mother to the door after a short visit, Lucy stopped and looked up at him. You didn't have to keep helping, she said. After I was safe. Adam smiled, though there was no humor in it. That's the thing, he replied. Once you see something, you don't get to pretend you didn't. Lucy nodded slowly, as if committing the idea to memory. As they left, Adam remained standing in the quiet lobby, watching their reflections fade from the glass. He understood now that safety was not a moment, but a commitment. And some commitments begin the instant you choose to believe a small voice asking for shelter. Time moved forward, but it no longer erased what had happened. Instead, it layered over it, slowly and deliberately, turning fear into memory and memory into something that could be carried without pain. Lucy changed in ways that were subtle but unmistakable. She still noticed details others missed, still watched reflections in windows and listened for footsteps behind her, but the tension in her shoulders eased. Caution no longer ruled her movements, it guided them. Adam remained part of her world, not as a rescuer frozen in a single moment, but as a steady presence who kept showing up. Sometimes he met Lucy and her mother for a short walk after school. Other times they sat together in the lobby, talking about ordinary things that had nothing to do with fear or shadows. Lucy spoke about her favorite subjects, about a teacher she liked, about how she wanted to learn how computers worked like the ones in your building. Her mother changed too. She looked less exhausted, more grounded, as if the weight she had been carrying alone had finally been shared. One evening, as Lucy colored nearby, she spoke quietly to Adam. I didn't want to believe her at first, she admitted. Not because I didn't trust my daughter, but because I was terrified of what it would mean if she was right. Adam understood that fear now better than he ever had. Belief isn't easy, he said. It asks you to act. Lucy overheard them and looked up. You acted, she said simply. Adam smiled at her. So did you. At school, changes became visible. Teachers received training. New protocols were introduced, though few students knew why. Lucy noticed the adults watching more carefully at dismissal, the new security presence that didn't feel threatening but attentive. One afternoon, another girl from her class hesitated at the school gate, looking uncertain. Lucy walked up to her and pointed toward a nearby building with a bright sign. "That's a safe place," she said. "If you ever feel weird, you can go there." The girl nodded, relief clear on her face. When Lucy told Adam about it later, she sounded thoughtful rather than proud. "I didn't want her to be scared alone," she said. Adam felt something tighten in his chest, a quiet mix of sadness and admiration. Lucy had taken what had frightened her and turned it outward, using it to protect someone else. He realized then that resilience did not mean forgetting what hurt you. It meant choosing what to do with it. The trial concluded months later, the outcome firm and final. The man behind the glass was no longer a threat that lingered in reflections or memory. Lucy listened when her mother explained it to her, asking careful questions, absorbing the information without panic. That night, she slept through until morning for the first time in weeks. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Lucy and Adam stood near the glass wall of the lobby again. Sunlight poured in, casting long shadows that moved gently as people passed outside. Lucy watched them without fear. "It doesn't look scary anymore," she said. "No," Adam agreed. "It doesn't." She turned to him, her expression serious but calm. "You know," she said, "I think places remember things." Adam considered that. "Maybe they do." Lucy smiled. "Then this place remembers that it helped." Adam looked around the lobby, at the light, the glass, the ordinary flow of life moving through it. He realized that what it remembered most was not the shadow or the danger, but the moment someone had stopped long enough to listen. And in that memory, something lasting had been built, not out of fear, but out of belief. The year turned quietly, without ceremony or headlines, marked instead by the accumulation of ordinary days that no longer felt fragile. Lucy grew taller, her red backpack replaced by a new one chosen carefully for comfort rather than habit. She walked with an ease that had once seemed impossible, her steps no longer measured against imagined threats, though her awareness of the world around her remained sharp and thoughtful. Adam's life continued to expand in unexpected directions. What had begun as a single decision in a lobby became a pattern of attention that reshaped everything else. The programs he had supported grew, spreading beyond the city, creating visible, trusted spaces where children knew they could stop and ask for help. He never put his name on any of it. Recognition no longer interested him. What mattered was that someone would listen when a small voice spoke. Lucy visited the building less often now, not because it no longer felt safe, but because safety had followed her outward into the world. When she did come, she no longer scanned the glass for reflections or shadows. She walked straight in, greeting the receptionist by name, moving through the lobby like someone who belonged. One afternoon, as the light slanted low through the glass, Lucy stopped near the entrance and looked outside. The street was busy but ordinary, filled with movement that held no threat. Adam joined her, standing quietly at her side. "Do you remember the first day I came in here?" she asked. "Yes," Adam replied. "I remember." "I thought you wouldn't listen," she said. "Most people don't." Adam didn't deny it. "I almost didn't," he admitted. Lucy looked up at him, her expression calm, thoughtful, and far older than her years. "But you did," she said. "That's why everything else happened." They stood there in silence for a moment, the glass reflecting their figures clearly, without distortion. Adam understood then that belief was not a single act, but a chain of choices that followed one another forward, shaping outcomes that could never be fully predicted. Lucy turned toward the door, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. "I have to go," she said. Mom's waiting. Adam nodded. I know. Before leaving, she paused and looked back at the lobby one last time. This was my first safe place, she said softly. Adam felt a quiet weight settle in his chest, not sadness, but gratitude. And you made it safe, he replied. Lucy smiled, not as a child seeking reassurance, but as someone certain of her own strength. She stepped outside, joining the flow of people, no longer searching for shelter but carrying it with her. Adam remained where he was, watching the door close behind her. The lobby returned to its familiar rhythm, light and sound moving as they always had. Yet everything was different. Because sometimes a life does not change through grand gestures or loud heroism, but through a simple choice made in a quiet place, to listen, to believe, and to stay when someone asks to be safe.